Welcome back. Welcome to the Offload Delay podcast, officially the second podcast so far, but it's the inaugural first guest podcast. Boy, do we have a humdinger for you today. Got a very special friend of mine coming on the show here shortly, a person that is more than a friend. He was actually a close colleague of mine for for many years of my paramedic career. He's still a paramedic and just an all-around great guy. I brought this weapon of a guy on so that we can hear some of the insights into our paramedic world and some of our stories of working together over the years. My friend's name is Troy Ward. Been a medic for quite a long time. I'm going to let him introduce himself here shortly. And in fact, there we have Troy right there. Say hi to everyone, Troy. Good to
hi out there in podcast land.
Good to see you.
Be on the show, Brad.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Glad to have you on. I just think it's going to be a great start to this pod to let people kind of have a little insight into our history. We worked together for many years on the ambulance. We were partners through some pretty good times, some bad times. And yeah, and I just wanted you to let everyone know how long you've been a medic and kind of what drew you into this career and what other interests you have outside of the paramedic world. I know hockey's one of them, so I'm going to let you just kind of introduce yourself and remove myself for a minute here.
Okay. Well, my name is Troy Ward, as Brad stated. I've been a paramedic for 31 years. How I got my start is kind of odd. I was playing hockey, junior A, tier 2. I got hit in the knee and I could not weight bear, so I had to go by ambulance for x-rays to, I think it was Ottawa Hospital, doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm riding in this ambulance and I'm looking around and, looking at everything, and I'm like, geez, maybe this is something that could interest me. So I guess I talked to somebody that was close in the paramedic field, and they informed me of all the details that I needed to become a paramedic. So I went, got all my qualifications, enrolled in a college part-time in Bancroft, and 31 years later.
Hard to believe it's been that long, I'm sure, Troy. We didn't meet up at the beginning of your career, that's for sure. You had worked quite a while before I managed to hook up with you and to grab you as a partner. Where were you starting out? Were you in your hometown? What were you doing then? How did that pan out?
It was kind of my hometown. It's where I resided, in the little town of Colborne. And that's where I got my first start. It was basically like in the province of Ontario back then. I believe there were 6 hospital-based ambulance service. There were maybe another 30% ministry run. Maybe that number's a bit high. But the majority were privately run services. And so I got my start in that little town of Colborne in a non-union, one ambulance on-call service. And boy, did it wake me up in a hurry.
No doubt. How old would you have been then, Troy? At least what, 18,
I was 20, 21. Yeah, I was just on
So hard to believe you got 30 years in and you're only 28 now.
Yeah, not bad,
the math is kind of difficult to compute, but no.
Drinking out of vases.
There you go. It's we're going to get into why you're drinking out of a vase here a little bit later. You're a big hockey guy. You introduced your story there saying you were playing hockey, and that's how it all started. And you've been basically featured in the local media ranks for quite some time. I believe this one is a junior level 1 in Hawkesbury when you were playing at that level. Junior C, is it, Troy?
Junior A.
Junior A, and that was Prelude.
Bob Hartley those years.
And
Bob
we know
Harley is
Bob
probably
now.
well known as a champion at every level, including last year in the KHL. He won the championship with Avangard. So, and I still stay in touch with Bob. He's been a great friend. He's been a good ambassador for me, especially. So,
And I know hockey's had a big part of your life, a big role in your
yeah.
life. You're still involved. You're coaching now with a, correct me if I'm wrong, East Coast or Eastern Ontario Elite League. Is that the term?
They call it the Eastern Ontario Super Hockey League. What it is it's senior A hockey. So it's players from 20 years and up. On the date of your 20th birthday, the next day you're eligible. And you can, if you're that good at 95, fuck, have at her.
Yeah, no
We're
kidding.
always looking for good players.
It was great to see you get back into it again. I know you love it and you got a passion for it, and you're going to be doing the community a great role by having you in there. And fortunately, the team's real close to my home, so I get to go watch you now in a different role than I used to get to watch you on the ambulance. So let's fast forward 31 years later. You've been sitting
Yeah,
there in that chair. You had a vision of this job when you first started, when you were
I did.
20, and you thought you'd
Yes.
get in and you'd see some things. But looking back 31 years later, how do you see the career and the way it panned out compared to that first day? What's changed? What vision is it? Did it bring or did it destroy?
Well, my whole intention when I first started out was you always set goals for yourself. And mine was to hit 35 years. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. 31, and I'm done. Um, when I first started out, we weren't even classified as paramedics. So this was back in 1990. We were basically, band-aid crews, diesel therapy type thing. But like for an example, my very first shift being paid, where I was actually on the books. Um, I'm on call. Pager goes off at 2 in the morning. And the next thing I know, I'm going to this accident on the 401, really unknown still. Like obviously I'm green as hell. And we get there and there's 5 obvious deaths from a head on the 401. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, do I really want to do this? So then I go back and I talk to my partner goes home. Here I am, this newbie, sitting in a little shack down by the railroad station, every noise in the world, kind of, wondering what the hell's outside. But so I call my mother at like 2:30 in the morning. No, probably about 3:30 in the morning. And I said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "I don't know if this is what I want to do." I said, "I'm looking at people decapitated. I'm looking at, you know, dismembered. It's just, I'm like, is this, it's not real. I almost thought I was in a movie, for Christ's sakes." And, I pondered that weekend. That was the August 3rd long weekend, the civic holiday. I pondered of saying, this isn't for me.
Right.
But then there was something inside me said, this isn't going to be like this all the time.
Right.
But back then, you talk about mental health. Back then, the only mental health was the patients we picked up and transported to hospital. Aside from that, so I found that a struggle, and obviously it's impacted me as I move forward.
Right. And I started after you did. I got into it a little later than you, but even when I started out, Troy, the early stigma was if you showed any kind of emotion or any sign of being upset or affected by these calls, it was almost a sign of weakness, and it was frowned upon, and that's the way it was. It was a thinning of the
100%.
herd, and there was no thought of the mental aspect of the toll that it's taking on the responders, all of us out there.
Yeah.
However, now you've had to unfortunately admit that you're dealing with PTSD officially, and and understandably so, directly as a result of the career that you've given to the community for the last 31 years. And my question to you is, what were some of the signs And at kind of what point in this career were things obvious to you that you were going down this path of probably having to deal with some mental health issues as far as PTSD, or was it gradual?
Well, it was, so I left June of 2018. And I would say 2 to 3 years leading up to that is where I noticed changes, and my wife especially noticed changes where like I would sleep by myself. I didn't want to be near anybody. My anxiety levels, my anger issues especially. I was starting to, you know what, I just was losing my shit. There's no other way to,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then you think you can escape reality by drinking beer, and it just kept compounding, and I would drink more and more and more, and booking off sick. I'm booking off sick, and I don't have sick time. So really, that didn't mean a lot to me, losing pay and
Right.
affecting my pension,
Yeah.
because I just couldn't deal with it. I was always going to be afraid that there would be a time where I just say, you know what, somebody's going to fucking get smacked here.
Yeah.
And I knew that would be the end of me in my career, and any sort of, possible positive rehabilitation.
And that self-recognition is so important, but I think it's so much it's the difficult part of the PTSD for all of us there. It's like when you have to realize, is this a bad day? Is this just I'm having home troubles, or is it all wrapped up into one big ball of mental stress and mental health issues? And for you to recognize that, it's very commendable. But I
Well,
know there's go ahead.
no, I was going to say at first, it really, my wife was the one that really started noticing kind of my demeanor, where I would bring work home. And, I think she really wanted to say, can you turn around, go outside, come back in and be a little happier? In hindsight, that's what it was, because I was getting angry, and then I was like an ECG. I was up and down.
Let's be honest too. We were never trained how to deal with that stuff. There's
No,
nothing in the programs. I'm not 100% certain today, but I know when I went and when I was involved teaching and when you were involved teaching and with students, there's nothing about how to transition your professional life from your home life and everything else in between. It's just
absolutely
basically
not.
figure it out. And unfortunately, they teach us how to lift, how they tell you to work out, they tell you to get stronger physically for these patients, but they
Yeah.
don't teach you anything mentally on how to care for yourself. And I think this podcast is going to be able to convey a very important message, as well as reveal some very eye-opening facts due to the fact that we basically are left alone with that a lot of the time. Now, I'm going to just highlight some things, Troy.
Sure.
You and I, the people out there, the audience, anyone watching right now, won't necessarily know that we worked together as full-time partners for several years, and I ended up leaving that profession. It's
Yeah.
such a tough profession that just constantly grinds and grinds. I'm still doing the paramedic thing on the side, but I chose to jump to the fireside. And you were one of the very first people that I told that I was doing that and making that change. And I remember you saying that day, you wish you could make a change because you were also feeling it. But I was dealing with the same issues. I didn't know how to cope with it anymore. Not only the stresses of the job, but the stressors of the employer and the lack of respect. And I know you might have some very good words on that about the stuff, the shit we deal with in those ambulances day in, day out. So let's just talk about meal breaks, Troy. You got a regular lunch every day on the ambulance?
As you know, there's not a chance.
Yeah.
Um, my whole career, I'm gonna narrow it down to that. My whole career was, you ate when you got a chance. It really wasn't difficult when you worked in a small service, but as you progressed into larger services, the less chance of getting a meal break were, it was less frequent. You ate when you could. You ate on a clipboard. You ate with somebody, with the shits in the back, all these smells, all the sights and stuff you got to deal with. But you know what? that word hangry, and I was notorious for that. I would just lose my shit if I didn't get to eat within a reasonable time. But yet there was no support anywhere. You know, we would do 10-hour shifts, as you know, before we got a meal break. And you know what? You're eating on the side of the fucking road.
Yeah.
Just and not communicating with CAC because they're gonna burn your ass and use you for a call. It doesn't matter where you are.
There's the meal breaks and there's the washroom breaks. There's the fact that
Yeah.
we're off pulling the ambulance over the side of the road to have a quick pee at the side because we've been
Done
running,
that
running,
many a
run.
times.
And hangry is right. We're all guilty of it, and that then it ends up getting between people like you and I. So we get
Oh,
going at each other
absolutely.
after a long shift, and we have no real issues with each other. But it's just we are so stressed and so worn out and so underappreciated that
You're
it just
just
became
drawn
too
in.
much. And you end up
Absolutely.
having to take, and you and I have had many of occasions where we'd reset after a shift. We'd call each other, we'd go for a drink, we'd grab a coffee, whatever, and say like, "Look, that wasn't us. Let's do this again."
No.
And it's
Yeah,
it's
no.
it's not us alone. It's all of these services out there. It's the cops. It's the others, the agencies, and especially the medics. It's just people don't know how overrun they are and how underappreciated.
Yeah.
Now let's give a great example that you gave me a while ago. I wasn't involved with one of your worst calls that you've done as far as traumas. You were
Hmm.
involved in a motorcycle accident that was kind of epic, but the way it was resolved after, or the way it was not resolved, the way it was dealt with after was just so eye opening. So just
Yeah.
tell us a bit about that day, if you will.
So we were in the province of Ontario, and in eastern Ontario, and we got this call. I wasn't working with Brad, obviously, at the time. I was with when we had two partners. My other partner. So we get this car versus motorcycle, and they happen frequently in the summertime. Without a doubt. This one was pretty unique. This one was a car versus 8 motorcycles. And when we pulled up there, one of my strong points as a paramedic has always been triaging, is because I worked the 401 corridor for so many years, and I learned a lot about triaging, and it's something you had to do. Like a 103 car pileup on the 401, you learn pretty quick how to do the triaging. Um, but going back to this call, so I don't want to get into details
No,
about
no.
what happened, but
But there was fatalities. There was
there were
fatalities.
multiple
And you were
fatalities,
the
and
first one on scene. So you
I
show up
was the
with your
triage officer.
partner and
Absolutely,
you were
yep.
there first. Yeah.
So let's fast forward to a so-called debrief session, if that's what you want to call it. And it was pretty much amongst peers. There was nobody delegated to
So
say,
were you taken
I'm
off
going
the
to
road,
take,
Troy?
sorry.
Were you taken off the car? Were you
No,
taken off the
absolutely
road
not.
for a break?
We were all doing it after viable patients were unloaded at hospitals.
Right.
And so it was out in the parking lot in the ambulance bay. And so we're kind of consulting with each other, and there was no leadership. Everybody's looking at everybody, and they're like, shit, man, you guys okay?
Hmm.
What are you thinking? Well, honest to God, because we're the triage crew, we came to the hospital because obviously I got to match all my tags up, and anybody as a paramedic would understand the triage system. But because we didn't transport anybody on that call, we get a call from dispatch to go to a possible VSA hanging. And
And
this is,
the call's fresh, Troy. You've
yeah,
just
we did.
dealt with
You know what?
dealing with multiple casualties. There was at
Yeah,
least 4 people that were dead. And
yeah,
just because
absolutely.
those dead people were not transported in your ambulance, they figured, oh, you're free to go. And it's
Yeah.
just disgusting. And the thing they want
So,
you to go to is now a hanging. So not
yeah,
even a mundane call, which I don't know if it makes it better or worse. It doesn't really matter. But they don't even give you time to
no.
debrief or off gas from that
And,
issue. And it's just
and the hanging was, a teenage.
Yeah. So
So,
it just
doesn't
gets
make it
worse and
any easier.
worse.
Yeah,
And at
absolutely.
the whole time, the employers, and I'm going to say this right out there, they tout how much they're there for us. They tout how much they support us. And the odd one is, and I think you and I will agree that there are individuals within the employers that we work for that really do have our back.
Yes.
But we also know that a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, and we're going to have a lot of agreement with the viewers out there that are involved in this industry that, yeah, they might give us a hand if it's 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, or if you've missed a meal, they're going to give you a $12 credit on your pay
Yeah.
stub for a missed meal, where really what you need is the downtime and the time to decompress a little bit and get renourished. It's just simply disgusting. And I think that call alone is it's one of the more extreme cases, but it was not unheard of day in, day out to quickly clear from calls. Don't worry
No.
about yourself. We got more calls to do. And
Yeah.
the ambulances, the numbers aren't increasing in our province, that's for sure. And they're wanting to do
Well,
cuts half the time.
and if you didn't bullshit, which I got to be good at afterwards because you had to come up with a reason to say, can't go, can't
Yep.
go. You know what? Not my fault we don't have staff. It's not my fault the province neglects to put more paramedics on. It's not my fault we're not an essential service.
Yeah.
All that shit. And for me that day, it was like because of the nature, the age, we ended up going. And you know what? I came back and I'm just like, I'm done.
But that's the
I'm
good in
done.
you. That's why you
Yeah,
do this job, and that's why you've done it for that long, that you still answer those calls.
yeah.
You
You know
could
what?
have booked off sick right then and there. We have the
Absolutely.
ability in our, but we don't. We deal with it afterwards. And I think it's important to highlight the fact that all the people in these industries are these types of people. And sometimes the smoke and mirrors needs to be kind of cleared away to show what's really lying underneath, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah,
So you're off now indefinitely, probably going to finish your career off this way on a PTSD leave. You're
yeah.
having to seek help.
I'm done.
You're seeking help. You're doing the right thing. You're reaching out to friends. You and I golf every once in a while. We still hook up at the hockey rink, and you're seeing actual professionals, which is ideal. But I know that road wasn't easy. I know that
No,
you had to use some of your own sick time, and that you had to basically prove that you weren't bullshitting someone, that
exactly.
you were just looking for a free way out. And that's the fight that we all have right now. And I think that's the fight we need to represent moving forward to try and bring this into some clarity. And I know that you've struggled with it, and I commend you for an amazing job.
Well,
You have a fantastic family. We all have our coping mechanisms, and we're going to get to that in a bit. But I just want to show people something here, and I want you to kind of explain while you're off on PTSD. You're sitting there, you're trying to figure out the end of your career. You're trying to figure out how this actually came to be the way that those 31 years are unraveling. And this is really nothing you could envision. Suddenly, you now have to deal with this.
yep.
What is that, Troy?
That would be my house going up in flames.
And
Yeah,
when was that?
still a bitter pill.
No doubt.
May 17th of this year,
So as if you didn't
24.
have enough going on already,
No, exactly.
you have this beautiful setup. You have a beautiful yard.
Mm-hmm.
There it is before, where it was your pride and joy.
Yeah, I
You
put a
used to
lot of work.
tell everybody how great your outdoor world was, and it was. You had a hot tub set up, you had outdoor smokers, you had cooking, and it ends up that a simple incident, a simple mistake, a simple flaw ends up doing this to the entire inside of your house.
Yeah, yeah. It
Just
was in the
devastated.
pool pump out back, and overheated. The switch didn't trigger, and
So now you're dealing with that on top of things, and it's COVID, right?
yeah, it's been a hell of a
And
year.
you are a solid individual to get through that with your family. Had you over shortly, not shortly, but within a reasonable amount of time when you were willing to come over, and we had a good chat about it.
Yeah,
And when I first contacted you, you didn't even want to talk about it. Another thing people won't realize was that fire was in the area that I serve as a firefighter now. as the career that I left working with you to join,
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that day, I'm going to say it right now, that I was unable to go to that call. I wasn't on duty. I was called in and I wasn't available, but I knew right away what was going on and my heart sank. And I don't know if it was good that I didn't go, and I don't know if it was bad. I'll never know that answer. But once I heard you were safe and fine, things were a lot better. But my goodness, I know now we've moved on to this. This is an excavator now that's basically ripping down remnants of your pride and joy. It's your homestead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that brings me to that vase you're drinking out of right now. Just so everyone knows, you've had a struggle. The fire was what date again? Sorry, Troy.
May 17th.
Of this year,
You know what? Let
2021.
me just bring something up too
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
About you feeling, should I have been there? Shouldn't I have been there? When I saw the flames first start in the out back of the cabin in the pool pump, I thought I could actually get a hose and maybe do something about it. But then when I went back and I saw, oh my God, how fast that's gone. And then I got to contribute a big, thanks to the Belleville Fire Department. You know what? They were there in 5 minutes and 13 seconds. And that's what they were faced with in that short period of time. And unfortunately, the wind was blowing to the west or coming from the west to the east. So it blew right into the house. And
This is what we're left with now.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I know it's hard for you to look at these, but it's important for people to see that not only do we deal with PTSD from work, but we have the same trials and tribulations outside of our work as everybody else too. So we have to also find that balance. Everybody has traumas. Everybody deals with issues, but we choose to go to work and we choose to immerse ourselves in it. And all we wanted and all we need is a little bit of support. No one knows that you're going home to that at the end of the day, and no one wants to know that. But kudos to you, your support unit right now. That was in May. Right now, you're living in a rental, I believe, right? So you're a little low on drinking glasses, so we've got the vase out, and that's true Troy fashion. Everybody, that is what he will improvise at any given situation.
Yeah.
But I think right now, here's
I'm
Troy.
watching TV on my front lawn.
So this was a trailer. This was a trailer that was put on your city lot where the house burnt down, and that's how you spent your COVID summer of 2021. And there's you have a wife and a pup and everyone to deal with, and then you're trying to sort out your own work-related issues along the way, and you're trying to sort out the insurance issues along the way. Kudos to you. You're a super strong individual, and I know that it's not all doom and gloom. I know that because I know you too well, and I wanted to bring you on for a very specific reason because you got a great sense of humor and you're not afraid to call things the way they are.
Yeah, I've been.
So just give me a sec, Meow. Just give me a second here. I have to just show the audience something here. So I'm gonna just play this for everybody.
All right. How about cat game?
Cat game. What's the record?
Thorny did 6, but I think you can do 10.
10? Starting right in Meow. Sorry about that.
All right, Meow. Hand over your license and registration. Your registration? Hurry up, Meow.
Sorry.
There's something funny here, boy?
No.
Well, then why are you laughing, Mr. Larry Johnson? All right, Meow, where were we?
I'm sorry. Are you saying Meow?
Am I saying meow?
I thought.
Don't think, boy. Meow, do you know how fast you were going?
No. The reason I played that was very, very particular. I know you and I had a hell of a good time with that clip throughout our career together. And people need to know that you were the Meow champion of the paramedic world, especially when we were together. You definitely had the records. We would often go to calls, and it's important people know. Now, we're not talking where we got to have our game face on all the time, but we could pull those meows off like nobody else, right, Meow?
You got her, Meow.
You were even good enough that you would get dispatch going on the radio sometimes
Oh,
on a
absolutely.
recorded airwave, and everyone needs to know those airwaves are restricted. We're not allowed to swear. We're not allowed to do anything other than true business talk on those radios. But Troy could always slip a meow and make the day that much better when you're on those calls. And I think you were in the teens on several calls. We've had people where you do meows the whole way to the hospital and they still
Oh,
would
yeah.
read.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
was all in fun. No one was ever hurt by it. Most of them don't even know. They
They
every
still to
once in a
this
while
day
they would,
wouldn't have
yeah,
a clue.
they would have no idea. But
Yeah.
I think that's part of what I'm getting at next, which is basically coping mechanisms. It's how we cope. We're a
Yeah.
little dark. We're a little dark. We have a little bit of fun. You have to. I know you and I have had some fun calls. It's not all doom and gloom. We have laughed a lot in the ambulance, and usually not in front of families or patients, but we keep it to ourselves. But there was a particular instance when you and I were helping move a lady. I think you should tell everybody this story about how a call can turn from nothing to quite hilarious within a few minutes, and now hilarious to us. If it's
Yeah, I'll
offending
be
anybody, it's not meant to be, but we're able to convey this message quite easily. So
no,
let's just start with we had a female patient,
I'll be
right?
yes. Well, I'm not going to elaborate a lot on it because it was just nothing went down intentional. It was just one of those freak things. Somebody, I believe they needed morphine. They couldn't weight bear. They were in bed, and you know what? There was, let's say, minimal clothing on, and we have a different styles of lifting people, and so we had to log roll. And when we log rolled and where my hand was, it kind of went somewhere where it really shouldn't have. And
I'm gonna
because,
say it, Troy. I'm gonna say it if you don't.
well, I just, yeah, went, my thumb went right up her ass.
And
And
there
I was,
is no way people would believe that hearing it on the
no.
sideline. I
And
remember
they
you
were
approaching me after the call going, you will never believe what just happened. You're
well,
never gonna believe this, the way we lifted her and your hand slipped, something happened. No harm, no foul. But we definitely you had the best grip on that patient that we could have asked for. Let's just say that.
oh,
Now it's not all crude.
I did
It's
have
not
my
all
blue glove on.
That's right, and it was totally professional. Sometimes
Oh
we have
yeah,
to
I,
encounter nudity. Sometimes we have to do certain things that the layperson would not understand. And this
exactly.
particular incident was one where I will not forget that ambulance discussion after that call with you and how we were going to possibly change our lifting strategies from that point on to either ensure it never happened again or it always happened. That I think we were going never happened.
Well,
Um,
I knew I like. I don't know if you even noticed the difference in me. I was like, I shut right down. I was like,
oh yeah,
damn,
if
you
Troy's
know,
quiet,
it's yeah, I
something's
know.
going on.
It's I
Yeah,
was like, shit,
absolutely, literally, yeah,
literally.
absolutely. So,
So
and
I was
then we
like,
had another one. I
we
remember.
gotta put her down. We gotta put her down.
Well, you did right though. You resolved the
Yeah.
situation, you
Oh
fixed
no.
everything, and we were professional about it. Now, we were heading back one day from an out of town call, and we
Okay.
got tagged for a suicide. And now, nothing funny about that. We'd got called for a gentleman that had taken a gun to himself and decided to end it, and we were rerouted to an out of town area for that. And I remember showing up to this scene. It was outside, and an officer approaching us and pointing to where we had to go. And it was our job at the time just to confirm that truly that it was a fatality or if not.
Oh,
But as we were heading there, I remember being stopped in my tracks. And one of us had stepped on a nose. And no the officer was beside himself. There was actually an entire nose out of the vehicle, out of the scene of this horrible call. And all we could do was laugh. Like, who can say that they've stepped on an entirely intact nose in the middle of a grassy field on the way to a call, and now the
covered
police
in
need us to
leaves.
give us our. That's right. And then we
It
had to
was him
give
to
our
fall.
boots. Remember, we had to show our treads
Yes,
as
absolutely.
evidence because
Yeah.
now it's a crime scene, and now our treads are listed as evidence on that nose print as an incidental happening. So I
Yeah.
think we have a lot of story. We could do a whole show
Oh,
on
you know
the
what?
shit we've seen, the stuff we've dealt with. But I want to say as well, during the job, you actually get some perks. So in this screenshot here that you sent me, this is going back to when we were working together for sure. There's a
That was a
gentleman
lot.
there on our left, your right in the picture. And that's who?
That would be Mr. Leahy, Jim Leahy from the Trailer Park Boys,
And boy, were they popular at that time.
who
They were
unfortunately
popular.
has passed since.
That's right. Yeah, we've lost him since, but he was a tremendous laugh for you that day, I
Yes.
remember. But not as much of a laugh as the lady. Who's the lady
Yeah.
there, Troy?
Well, I had no clue. And I was sitting there talking to Jim, and man, he smelled like booze. So truly, it does. It is him when they say, "Oh, does he drink offset?" And that. Well, I can assure you that he was pissed. And so all of a sudden, I said, "Come on, Jim, let's get a photo." And this girl, as you can see right in the photo there, attractive young lady, reaches around and grabs me right by the balls. I've never smiled so much in that, in a picture. Look at me. I'm happy as fuck.
But people don't realize the risks of our job are all
Yeah.
encompassing. There's a
She could
lot
have
more
a
risk
razor
to it.
blade and cut them
right.
right out of my sack.
That's getting close now for sure.
Yeah.
I just know that the job comes with some trials, some tribulations. First responders in general face challenges that the common public that aren't involved have no idea. They have no idea. Plus, we have our own challenges that we face at home and outside of work that everybody else has on top of it. So I know for whatever reason behind me, you can see a silhouette of my dog. And I know you're a big dog person.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I'm just going to flash this as a tribute. When I was working with you, that was your boy Jimmy.
Yeah.
And Jimmy, we've lost Jimmy, unfortunately. But
9
Jimmy,
days before the house fire.
so now you've lost your dog.
Yeah.
You're off on PTSD. And now you've lost your entire house.
Yeah.
It's
All
just,
within a 2-week span of, 2 of the 3 occurrences.
I love
And
Jimmy. I remember you getting Jimmy, and I know Jimmy was there for you as much as my dogs have been for me. And I think that's an important point is a lot of us responders relate very, very closely to pets, specifically dogs. It's kind of an
absolutely.
outlet for us, and it's the one who's home when we get home off of a bad shift and everyone else is doing their normal business hours and we're off or whatnot. But I also know you have a big support group. You have two beautiful daughters,
Oh, yeah.
twins.
Twin
Yeah.
daughters. Yep.
Again, hard to
Smart.
believe that they're your
Mine.
daughters just because of age alone, because they're university age now or and beyond. They're full adults, and you're only 28. So again, it's
Yeah.
a fantastic thing. So here, your beautiful girls there, they turned out amazing. They've had to
Yeah.
endure a lot of the stuff with dad over the years. Dad's brought a lot of stuff home, but look at how well they've turned out. You've obviously been able to keep them in a situation away from all the crap we're dealing with and provide them everything they need. And I know one of them is now doing a graduate degree. Is that right?
Yeah. Hallie's doing her master's in public health at Ottawa U right now.
And Hallie is in the which color? They're
Hallie
twins. I never knew.
on my right. Hallie
On
would be
yours.
on my
Okay.
right in that
Right.
picture.
And
And
both
my
girls
other
are doing
daughter,
all right.
Brooklyn, she's doing her nursing, and she wants to carry on beyond that, and she's looking into her nurse practitioner. So
Very
she
good.
just doesn't want to stop at nursing because I don't think Brooklyn's like her dad, doesn't like foul smells and puke.
Yet he dealt with it for how long?
Yeah, I know. I
Exactly.
don't know how the hell we did it, or I did it, and
But
for me personally.
let's be honest, though. I'm going to switch you back here, Troy. I don't want that one there. This lady here.
Yeah,
This is your lovely wife,
this is my wife Carol.
and she's been through all all of this stuff we've talked about with you lately, and you've
Absolutely.
actually merged a couple families. So she's had her children as well that are dealing with, and you've come out on top, and you're doing very well. You're in a rental right now. Your house is getting rebuilt, and you're still pushing on. And Carol's also in healthcare,
Yeah,
so it's
Carrie has.
another level of stress, fatigue, emotions that comes with it. But I know you lucked out with Carol. I know she's been your rock, and she's actually, as you say, the one who has been the one to help you address some of this
Absolutely.
PTSD. And she's
It's
a
mostly from her
fantastic individual.
recognition. Yeah, mostly from her recognition.
And that's really important for everyone out there, right? We often
Absolutely.
don't see it ourselves because we live it. It's gradual. Often it just kind of slowly creeps in, and we just think it's who we are. But we're so much different than what we were on that very first day. So
I
I
got to be thankful to her. Like just anybody could have said, "I'm not dealing with that shit," and
I'll
said
be
that's
honest,
over.
Troy. Just not anyone's dealing with Troy.
No, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's I get it, and that's kudos. But I mean, and that's in all the best way.
no,
Troy is a fantastic person, and he's strong, and he's stubborn, and he's if he wants something, he's hard headed. He's going to get it, and it takes a special person to deal with us and to deal with Troy specifically. And Carol's fantastic. She
yeah.
enjoys to have a pint with everyone else too, and then she just meshes right in. So I wanted to say hi to Carol. I haven't seen her in a bit, and we wanted to definitely acknowledge her here. So let's just stop for a second there with all the tributes, if you will. I need to kind of just ask you as we get close to wrapping this up, if you had one or a highlight of those 31 years, is there a specific event? Is it the people? Is it the patients? Is there something that is the highlight of that career of yours that you need to bring forward? Because unfortunately, it's ending on a sour note, and it does for most people.
I it's pretty hard to get a positive out of so many people's miseries. Um, I guess what I could say that's really gratifying, that has been gratifying. There's a lot of paramedics that will never be part of a delivery of a child in their whole career. And I've been part of 11.
That's incredible.
And you know what? I obviously the mother does all the work. We're there to, stimulate, do the APGAR, and if there's any emergency intervention, then we get involved. But still to be part of that and see such a positive outcome. You know what? I guess that's probably what I can say. Um, Other than the fact, too, when you get people, they come back and they send you letters, they send you pictures, they want to take you out for lunch, and just recognized. I know early on in my career, it happened. An unfortunate event again on the 401 involved a little boy, and I was able to reach in a car that was starting to burn, and this little boy was stuck. And not to blow my own horn or nothing, but I don't think the outcome would have been very good. I know I didn't have an ounce of hair on my arms when I got out of the car. And I had this couple, they sent me letters. They were from Eastern Canada. So they sent me letters and they sent me pictures, which I still have. And that to me sometimes that's a choker. Um, so that kind of stuff. When you see the positive outcomes, you see this kid how he was wrapped up in bandages and being in a burn unit all the time, and he was in there for months upon months, and for them to send me pictures of his progression in life, I think maybe up to 12. And then
Good
I
for you, man.
really haven't seen. So I guess that's probably gratifying in the post call.
Right.
So
Right.
like it's
I hear what you're saying, and we could probably reiterate that story 100 times over. You and I mentioned it earlier before we actually started record. Was there's so much stuff that we could talk about that we don't even remember half of it, and it really starts to flow. So I know we're going to have you back. I know we're going to have different episodes, and you're going to, if you're welcome, if you're wanting to come back, I really want to have you on. Once everybody gets to know you and see, it was important for me to introduce you to the podcast audience that's out there, because you're a big part of what got me to this point as my partner all along. And I think that's one of the highlights that I would want to mention is the friendships that you create with certain
absolutely.
ones. Not all of us. We certainly don't like everyone we work with. Nobody does at any job. But when you're with a partner and you're in the trenches and you're just getting through these horrible or these challenging or these frustrating events over and over and over, years down the road, you come out and you look back and you have a bond with that person that it's undescribable. And I think that
Yep.
that is almost priceless. Now, I know you're going to be excited because you're on this podcast. I just don't know that it was meeting this level of excitement, if you will. We said you're a big
Yeah,
hockey fan, and there you are with the current,
yeah.
let's call him, he's got some
The kid.
competition now, but he's definitely one of the greatest we're going to witness, right? And you got
Oh,
to meet him, and that was when.
that was in 2014 in Anaheim
That was,
when
I know you did a big trip down and you got to meet a bunch of NHLers, and it was a dream trip of yours.
yeah, it was a friend of ours, Matt Bolesky, that played for the Ducks. And we just happened to be there when Montreal, Toronto, and Pittsburgh were in town. And
Unreal.
you know what? It is what an experience. You know what? It's like, reliving a hockey dream of your own, but not to that
Right.
extent.
To get that inside view is
Yeah.
unbelievable, and you would bring it to us. We were getting the
Oh
signatures, we
yeah.
were getting the shirts that you were getting signed. We were seeing the close up pictures and getting the real stories. Right? They have their own
Yeah,
back
absolutely.
behind the scenes stuff, the same as we have. But you also have another passion, and you've really taken on to that in the last little while. And I know that trying to get her load up here. There we go. You sent me this
Yes.
picture of you love to cook,
I'm
and
I've
you're
become a smoking connoisseur, not of cigarettes.
yeah, and good for you. I know that you've become kind of notorious in the area for the stuff that you're preparing, and you find a lot of therapy in that too. I know you
I do.
find a
I
lot
find
of
I can escape. It's like
that's right.
I'm focused on doing the best I can with doing my meats, smoked meats, prime rib, as you see, or the picture you have
Right.
up.
Just beautiful.
And it's like an escape from all the past. And,
Yeah.
I've been dealing with a great lady as far as my, for the PTSD. And she's guided me like no other.
Good.
And it took a switch for me before I found the right therapist.
Right.
Doesn't mean your first one's always going to be the one that's key for
No.
you. And in
And I
my
think we're
case,
going to
it was.
do a whole discussion on the mental therapy side of it eventually, and we're going to
Yep.
include you in as a guest, and we'll probably have a couple other people on the panel. Um, it's just fantastic that you're willing to come on and tell your story. People can reach you through Facebook, I think, is basically where your social media lies right now, right? You're pretty much Troy Boy Ward on Facebook. And we know that was a secondary thing after your first account got hacked, but the irony of it all isn't lost on me. I love that handle.
It's not my wrestling name or my porn name.
No, no, those are different, right? They're different
Yeah. Oh
hashtags.
yeah.
But
I
so
don't
Troy
want to
Boy
have
Ward,
a boy.
I see you're wearing your hashtag I've got your back shirt, and I'm going to
Yeah.
mention them. They're a great,
My
great.
girls got me this shirt years
They're,
ago, and
they're a
I've
company that was started, I believe, around 2014, and they're actually going to be a guest on here, and they've been a supportive factor in this pod. They have
mhm.
great merchandise, fantastic looking stuff, but they also were started to promote mental health awareness in first responders, basically what we're talking about on this pod today, and to contribute financially to the resources needed to help us as responders cope with the mental baggage we've got. And I encourage people, I'm going to pull their logo up here in a minute, but I encourage people to check out I've Got Your Back 911. They're a great source of gifts for non-responders. You don't have to be a responder, but the
Yeah.
money is diverted back in. And they have a whole range of products, stickers, decals, hoodies, shirts, hats. And I think it's really great that you're supporting them today. So before we go,
Okay.
advice for new ones, the newbies. If they're starting this career right now, Troy, what are you telling them? What's the truth?
Honestly, this is an easy one for me. It's do not let calls eat you up. Do not feel that if you say something, you're going to be considered a wimp. That they're going to look at you as, oh, you can't do this career. I strongly suggest now that the system is getting better. It's definitely nowhere near perfect, but there are improvements to mental health for PTSD. Just don't let it eat you up. Talk to people, talk to peers, talk to therapists. Don't bottle it up. This is a new world now, and we got to move forward in a positive way. And by you stepping forward and seeking help, it took me 25 years before I wasn't afraid to say, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. So my best advice is for anybody that's wanting to be part of the 911 system is feel free to, let it out. If you don't let it out, you're going to bottle it up. And I've used the analogy, and maybe some people can think about this as well, is like when you start your career, it's like putting a plug in a bathtub. Every time you see a traumatic call that has an impact on you some way, shape, or form, it's like pouring water in the tub. And eventually, there's so much water in that tub, there's nowhere for it to go, so it has to overflow. And that overflow usually is PTSD, breakdowns, where you can't basically deal with stuff anymore on your own. So before it even gets to that level, I would say speak. Don't be afraid.
Fantastic words, Troy. They really are, because there's a lot, and we'll get into that later when we touch on the mental health. There's a lot in this career that isn't actually even taught. They don't
Yeah,
teach you how to deal with these things.
absolutely.
The best resource you have out there are the people that have been there, have done that. Now, that being said, my advice to new hires is you don't know it all.
No,
And
famous
the number one reason to prove that you don't know it all is you look at someone like Troy with his 30 years in, or me touching on my 20 years. We actually know less now than when we started, because the more we see, the more we realize we don't know. We know a lot. We
so
figured out
true.
a lot, but I think that's a good sound advice. And don't be afraid to reach out to us, right? To us people
Absolutely. I've told
in
people that.
yeah. And I think I'm really appreciative of you coming on the show. I'm going to finish the guests that I feature when you're on. I'm not going to ask this every time you're on, but I'm going to have the same three questions. So first of all, just to kind of steer away from the actual paramedic side, just more on the person side, this show is meant to be a fly on a wall. It's the fly on the wall of our world. Offload delay when we're sitting there chatting with our stretchers, and all the stuff and all the real stories come out. We learn about your roasts and the fires and the dogs, and all of that stuff happens. So for you, if you could be a fly on the wall anywhere to anyone, who are you listening in on? Where would you want to be?
Work related?
No, anything. What would Troy want to have an inside view on?
You know what? If you would ask me that maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'd probably have more answers. But
Right.
now I have this, I don't give a shit.
Good man.
You know
Yeah.
what? If somebody wants to talk about me, go
No,
ahead. You know
But is
what?
there anything that intrigues you? Like you wish you had more of an inside in? Like even a great kitchen, a great chef or something, just something. You've seen the hockey world inside and out.
Well, and
I mean,
that's the culinary and
yeah,
photography. I
yeah. You are, yeah, that's another
love the
part we didn't even get
photography
into.
as well
Yeah,
because they get you out in nature and stuff like that. And I just feel that's a breath of fresh air as well.
right.
Well, I'm learning it. But
Okay.
yeah, that's
We'll
that
take
right now.
that. I'll
That's
move on. You're speaking like a seasoned veteran. You're like, you know what? Whatever. I've seen lots. I don't really care if I see much more of anything. And that's a great answer. So
yeah,
we've talked about food, and we often talk about food when we're together.
lots of it.
That's if you could eat one food and one food only the rest of your life, what are you having?
Troy's Montreal smoked meat.
Smoked meat, eh?
Had
Just
one
day
today.
in, day out. Good for you. Yeah, we're gonna try and get this thing on the
Probably end up with
distribution
a
line.
cardiac arrest for
Hey,
a sodium overdose.
as you've seen though, it can happen to anyone at any time anyway. So you know how it is.
True enough.
All right, I'm gonna close on this.
Sounds good.
And this will be different for you as it will be because we're gonna have non-first responders on here. What's
Okay.
what is the smelliest place you've ever been?
I'm gonna say the rental I'm in now. Yeah, I'm living right beside the shit plant,
Oh,
and it
really?
depends on what way the wind blows.
Because
It's like you got to shut the windows. Yeah.
I know you're in a beautiful building, like a
Oh,
beautiful
no,
structure.
I'm not complaining about that at all. It's
But for
nice down
people out
here.
there that don't know, they basically built it along the water, and the water in this area has our shit plant right there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
good answer,
yeah.
Troy. I
Good
gotta
call.
thank you.
Thanks
Gotta
for
pack
having
you
me.
a
It's
punch.
been nice.
It's good to catch up with you. It's good to share your story, and we're gonna have you on
Absolutely.
again. And I encourage people to reach out to Troy on his Facebook. If they have any questions about anything from roasts to fires to hockey to paramedics, even who knows, you might have a few answers about that.
Yeah.
But Troy, we're going to sign you out now. Thanks again for joining. We're
Thanks
going to
for
see you
having me.
again real soon. And I'm just going to kind of close out here with mentioning again. I wanted to thank I've Got Your Back 911. This company is doing great things, and I encourage you all to check them out. They have a website, which is I've Got Your Back 911.com. They're going to be supporting this podcast. They're going to be showing some swag, and I'm going to definitely have representatives on to give their side of the story as far as what they're doing for us as first responders and how amazingly their business is taken off. This podcast is part of the DeanBlundell.com network. I can't say enough about Dean and his crew. They've made this possible. They've given us a voice. Dean is one heck of an individual working for the better good of everybody else, and it's working, let me tell you. Thanks to DeanBlundell.com for supporting this podcast and for supporting us as responders. You can watch this podcast on various outlets. I'm going to actually switch to this one. We're on DeanBlundell.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And if you want to reach me, you want to reach out, Instagram, offload_delay, Twitter at offload_delay, YouTube. I have a channel there. You could subscribe. I encourage you to subscribe to Offload Delay, separate words. Facebook, a little lesser used for me, but it is on there. Just my name, Brad Hopper. And that is where we're going to leave our first pod. Really good show. Amazing information. I hope some eyes have been opened out there, and I'm very happy to have been able to introduce Troy, a very close friend of mine and excellent colleague. Can't say enough about him. Look forward to our next podcast. We're going to try and do these on the weekly. I'll be releasing out my when the pods are going to be shown on my socials, and just keep an eye out for the links there. For now, that's it, everybody. Stay safe. Look forward to bringing you the next episode of Offload Delay. Thanks for tuning in.